it's Daz. This week is a continuation off of last week as far as America, and we could just say the world in general. We're being led less towards a peaceful time and more into a warring, and warring doesn't always mean with bombs and bloodshed, but even just with policy trade. The President of the United States is talking about wanting not only to send people who are illegally in the country, but also U.S. citizens who've committed violent crimes to El Salvador prisons as well. I've heard rumors that some satellite images show lots of blood coming from those, so maybe they're executing people. I know when they did open up Guantanamo Bay, that was pretty extreme too. So you have that happening. Basically modern day prison camps. Everyone loves to talk about how America has changed and improved, and they say this about many countries, and then we find out that a lot hasn't changed, or there's still a lot of corruption going on. And then the other big piece of news is that the president wants to get rid of Jerome Powell because he refuses to lower interest rates. And so he's trying to take on the Fed. Now the Fed, even though it's called the Federal Reserve, they're not appointed by a president, and they're not controlled by the federal government. So it's not so easy for Doge or them to come in and cut him like they did for other programs. Also, another program they cut with Doge is AmeriCorps. And for me, that hits close to home because if you have followed me for many years, you'll know that I did a term locally in Kansas City at Harvester's Food Bank, and then I did another term at the NCCC campus in Sacramento, California. And I helped out in DC, Beeville, Texas, and Saipan in the Northern Mariana Islands. So that was cut short by COVID, but this time, because of the lockdown and them shutting down the country, being on the other side of the world. But now, those people, especially like those 18, it used to be 24, but they changed it to 26-year-olds, are probably briefly being sent home. And this isn't just affecting a bunch of kids that want to volunteer. This is affecting people who get services. So like even at Yosemite National Park, for instance, since they fired so many people because of Doge, like the only guy that had the key, there were issues of people using the bathroom. Now that people can get into the bathroom, scientists are the ones cleaning the bathrooms because they don't have janitors for it. So just a lot of cuts through and through. And going back to why Trump wants to cut interest rates, he claims that the economy is doing better than ever, that inflation is down, that eggs are cheaper, that gas is cheaper. You can look at the stats yourself on that and determine. And Jerome Powell's pretty much saying that we don't know yet. We should wait 90 days before lowering rates because we have to see how these tariffs play out. Speaking of tariffs, the tariffs that Trump hit China with now are 245%. So it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. And it was O'Leary who wanted 400% tariffs on China. This is literally billionaires in China fighting billionaires in the US. Also, speaking of money, you had Chinese factory workers coming out saying that all these expensive name brands that people get that they wear because they're Italian, French, or whatever, most of them are made in factories in China the same way the dupes are. And people think that they're stitched by artisans in Italy or France, and really a lot of times they're just shipped over there. And that if 30% of it is made there, by just like simply putting the tag on, they can claim made in Italy, made in France. And so they're saying a lot of people thought they were being prestigious to buy these inflated priced bags or clothing. Maybe they thought they should pay $50,000 for a Birkin bag. Maybe it's only worth $50. And some people are now like, let's get it from directly the Chinese manufacturers. Other people are like, no, like influencers saying that's not true because influencers thrive off of being better than everyone else. Most of them already come from a wealthy background. Another note is Coachella, the music festival that happens annually in the Coachella Valley of California. It was really bad for the normies this time. So if you're wealthy, like we've seen time and time again, usually your time in anything is a lot smoother than those that are not. So people may have paid $12,000 or several $1,000s to go, whether they took out a loan, had an installment plan, put it on their credit card and racked up more credit card debt, which they said that I think it's like 60% of Americans who go on trips put it on their credit cards, and many of them take out loans. And they say the average cost per person on a trip is $2,000. So that's crazy debt to go into to go on vacation. My advice would be, if you can't afford vacation this year, just save and wait till the next year. I know after COVID, a lot of people were scared because there was a lockdown. They're scared another lockdown's going to come, and the travel industry has exploded since. But truth be told, I feel like a lot of these policies like Southwest put out about the assigned seating or taking away the free bags or all these planes suddenly crashing, I do think they're trying to clean house with certain people, but I also think they're trying to make travel more exclusive to those with money, because those with money, whether they're retirees who tired of seeing too many young people on the plane with them or at the resorts, they're trying to scare people out of travel. The same way I think the reason the auto industry is so bad, I know there's tariffs, I know there's been problems, but I think they have a plan to make it so less people drive in the U.S., less freedom to drive, hence why they wanted us all to have electric vehicles, and then make driving more of a privileged thing and make the rest of us take public transportation. That sounds extreme, but I feel like that's the kind of world that they want, is exclusivity to certain places and things by trying to cut us from traveling and cut us from driving more often. But they can say like it's better for the air, less gas emissions. Hence, LA burning down and then them wanting to build a smart city by 2028. And then it conveniently aligns with the Olympics. But I went on a tangent there, but going back to the Coachella nightmare. So for those that were waiting to get in, if you know anything about the desert, it can get really hot, especially this time of year. Like, I visited LA last April, and I was there quite frequently throughout the year. And LA can be kind of cool, depending on what part you're in near the ocean. But then if you're near the desert, it can be pretty hot during the day. Palm Springs, Palm Desert, all those areas are about like 2 to 3 hours from Los Angeles. So it's a lot warmer, it's a lot more inland. And people were waiting in their cars, and some of their cars shut off because they were overheating and sweating. Then once people got in, even if they had VIP parking, they didn't even get it because it was like a free-for-all. The claim is that they had new security team that they had hired, and they didn't have enough time to train or vet them. And then there were rattlesnakes on the campgrounds, which, I mean, you're in the desert, so rattlesnakes can be there. And then a lot of people felt like the performances that they saw, either like I heard that people are saying Lady Gaga's performance is satanic. That's not really surprising. But also that it felt like they were performing more for a camera than they were for the people there. Most of these things are mainly for influencers to network and to get to parties and to rub shoulders with celebrities. So the average Joe, I feel like is really feeling how average they really are. But I hope between people exposing things like these music festivals, because apparently a lot of music festivals anymore, people are putting them on credit cards or loans to go to them because it's just not the same. And then if you look at the ticket prices that some of these people charge for their tickets, it's insanity. People complain about being able to afford food, but then they go out of their way to do these things. And I get maybe if you have more disposable income, but a lot more people don't, because the job market is trash right now as far as getting a new job. If you're trying to switch a job, it's better to keep your job because there's massive layoffs, and you got to consider that a lot of people just lost their jobs with the layoffs from the federal, and then a lot of these big companies are also laying people off. Also in America, for those of us who have been working more remotely, there's been more of a push to push people back into the office, and some people quit because of that, but a lot of people can't afford to. Hence why more people are trying to join the financially free movement and find ways to have their own passive income. It's just crazy out here. As I mentioned last week, I watched 1923. I'm watching 1883 now. I would have watched them the other way around if I could. When I see the way America was formed, it's like at its core, it's going to be what it is. And it's not a mistake that the rattlesnake was once the national animal or symbol of the United States. The reason they say it was because it was unique to North America. It was also a part of the Revolution with the join or die. And then even the 13 colonies were cut up into a segmented snake to represent them. But we are seeing it. I do realize, too, that Trump going against the Federal Reserve is something my brother's been telling me about, which is that Trump wants to return the United States to its glory days before World War I or right around that time. He wants to probably back the U.S. out of the Federal Reserve, in my opinion, and he probably wants to find a way to save the dollar. Others feel that he's going to destroy the dollar, and then you have BRICS. By the end of his term, that things are going to be very different. I do see this attempt to try to save America, save the dollar, establish it as a world dominant power. I've also heard a theory that he's intentionally weakening the dollar to buy protection because he knows that there could be a military conflict with China, and we don't have the capability. That's another theory I've heard. Either way, though, I do see that the moves they're making to try to be isolationist, to try to pull out of all of the globalization to try to get rid of the reserve, tariff. These are pre-World War One ideas that are playing out. It'd be interesting to see how this all plays out. Some people say too, if something happens with the Federal Reserve, like they're actually able to oust Powell, that'd be a major sell-off of stocks and everything. I don't know. At this point, anything could happen. But I wanted to share all of this information as it came out, because I'm sure by the time I publish this video, more information will be learned. But I'd like to know what your thoughts are on all of this. Do you think that he is attempting to, save America by bringing it back to its pre-World War I days? And by him doing this, do you feel like the spirit of the 20th century or late 19th century, like I'm learning more about Reconstruction era because I just moved from Kansas City to St. Joseph, and St. Joseph is a river town and it feels super abandoned and ghost towny, but I had family members on my mom's side who used to live in this area, and then over the Missouri River on the Kansas side in Donovan County. And I'm learning the history and trying to do some genealogy. And I know that one of the reasons, of course, there was the Louisiana Purchase, as well as a lot of this area in Missouri. Like Missouri was a compromised state, which meant it could be a part of the Union, but they could still have slaves. And then they purchased a lot of this land and pushed Native Americans off so they could then have more land for slavery. But on the Kansas side, it was freedom. So if those enslaved people could make it over the river, they could be free. But then you had people blow to blow because you had abolitionists flooding into Kansas as well as slavers. And so they were clashing, and they called it Bleeding Kansas. And then in St. Joe to this day, there's lots of pubs and bars and everything else. And people used to drink whiskey like they drink water back in the day. And a lot of times they would wait to cross the river. And so people would then go to the bars and stuff and everything else. And river towns have their own history or stigma. St. Joe is actually bigger than Omaha and Kansas City combined, but now both are bigger because Omaha got the Trans-Pacific Railroad built, and then they chose to make the stop in Kansas City. So this county peaked, I think, in the 1960s, and then it's gotten smaller and smaller in the city of St. Joe. But a lot of history here. This was also where the Pony Express started, and then it ended in Sacramento, California, which is also another place I lived, which I find ironic as well. And so they have the stables and stuff here. So just a lot of history that I'm seeing, but I see how as we go back to certain things, again, we can't ever have the exact same outcome because the people are different. Our spirits, our ideals are different. I do see this attempt in trying to do things that worked 100 years ago, 50 years ago, a decade ago, but we're in different times, so the outcome's going to be different. But let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Happy Good Friday. He is risen. I'm so grateful for the sacrifice that he made on the cross for us. And that because Jesus died on the cross, that we can have everlasting life. And I hope that you have a good weekend, and praise God. Happy Resurrection Day. Have a wonderful weekend and rest of your week. Take care. God bless. Until next time.